What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the TMossBoss Show. In today's episode, I wanted to talk on kid-friendly content. Like YouTube, wrestling. There's like a lot of, different places and associations that's trying to be kid-friendly. Overall, cater all of their content towards kids. Marvel is on it. WWE is on it. YouTube is on it. TikTok is like somewhat on it, but TikTok is like it's an exception to the rules because you will see like content on there that is for like older people and stuff. But on the other hand, like there are a lot of kids on there, so I think if it came down to it, TikTok would try to cater more to kids rather than catering to like older people on there. Like if you like old on TikTok, then it comes off as like cringy content. I'm not saying that older people on TikTok is cringy, but that's just how everybody sees it. All right. So moving on, how do we solve this? Like, cause me, I don't like this kid friendly stuff. Now there should be, these side like places for it because I know YouTube at one point in time they did have YouTube Kids. Why they don't have it anymore, I don't know. But they used to have a thing called YouTube Kids. And WWE had like for like the past like ever since that Chris Benoit situation, then they was like we gotta push WWE into being a more kid friendly area because if it came down to it and more situations like Chris Benoit or similar situations would have happened. And it was like already things like building up to that moment. And Chris Benoit's like situation was like the final nail in the coffin. So they was like, we gotta change up our ways. We gotta have a brand new start. So that's when they started doing kid friendly stuff and limited cussing and blood and extreme matches and stuff. Like what they had like some extreme matches here and there, but other than that, and then like at some points in times they would have like some bloodshed. But other than that, it wasn't like. So here's a wrestling show where I'm like, hey yo, like if I would have been a kid, like I wouldn't have like that's the type of stuff that a kid should be watching. It's like AEW. Now AEW, like no disrespect to WWE, like of course we all know WWE is one of the, it's not even one, it is the biggest wrestling promotion of all time. I refuse to believe that there's another big wrestling promotion out there better. There is New Japan Wrestling, but WWE. Like WWE can honestly go come out with like a WWE Japan or something and compete with New Japan Wrestling if they wanted to. So, my thing is that WWE, like them past few years, being kid friendly and all that stuff, even I had like took notice to that because at the time being I wasn't, I was like, hey yo, look, as long as I just get to watch wrestling, like I'm a diehard like wrestling fan, so I don't really care. Like I just love the act and the art of it. So I'm like, I don't really care, But then as you get older and you become more of an adult, and then you're like, hey yo, why are they still doing this kid stuff? Like they were doing this when I was like in middle school. Now like I graduated years ago from high school. Like I'm a freaking grown man now, and y'all still doing this stuff. Like I mean, occasionally sometimes like I guess now they're trying to be a little bit more serious, but at the same time I'm like, bro, like you guys sit down and think about it. Kids are usually, the majority of the kids are usually asleep at like 8, 9, whatever and stuff. So like have it, I don't know, me personally, I'm like at night, have it where that wrestling for the adults. All right. Now kids want to watch it, kids can watch it. That is up to the parents or the guardians of them kids. Okay, but have like a daytime, like Saturday morning wrestling or something. You know how like they got like Saturday morning cartoons and things. Have it where it's like Saturday morning wrestling, and have it where that stuff is for the kids. Now that's how you eliminate like adults being mad about this kid friendly stuff with wrestling. It's like you guys need to come out with a wrestling show for kids. To teach them things, to learn things, so then it's like, oh, okay, that's good for my kids. But then as they get older, then that's when they work their way up to like the big leagues, like Monday Night Raw or NXT or AEW or SmackDown or, the pay-per-views and all that stuff. But I just don't want to be like, get to a point in time where I'm like my parents when it came to wrestling, like where they don't even watch it anymore. And the crazy thing about it is like they used to watch wrestling like back in the 90s, like when wrestling was really like, you know, it was bringing in some attention. Like that's why, and that's why I'm like, you guys, and that's one thing that I've been seeing a lot. Like there's this shout out to this wrestling channel called WrestleLamia, but every time I'll see like some video that they posted saying like Vince McMahon is upset, Vince McMahon is mad, Vince McMahon, you know, like all these things are like talking about how Vince McMahon is upset with WWE, and it's all like, well, bro, look at what it is now. It is not. Did you hear any of this stuff back in the 90s? Back like, you know, even in the 80s or 70s? No. Like that stuff was authentic. That stuff was like, yo, it came off as like, yo, this stuff is real. But then as the time progressed on, it was like, I don't know anymore. Like, I don't really know about this anymore. This don't seem right. But I'm saying, like, I know when I got into wrestling, I remember one of my favorite wrestling matches, and I was seeing this as a kid. Okay, of course, everybody gets into wrestling when they're kids. I mean, if you get into wrestling when you're an adult, there ain't no problem with that. That's cool. But the majority of wrestling fans get into wrestling when they're a kid. So obviously there's going to be that match where there is so much bloodshed. There is wrestlers getting hit across the... Well, I know like now you can't get hit across the head with a chair because of like, you know, to prevent injuries. Now that, I can accept that. I can hands down 100% accept that because I'm like, hey, yo, like that wrestler's health is more important than like giving me a show. So I'm like, I can care less about, you know, hits across the head or banned moves or all that stuff. But my thing is like, hey, yo, just make the show entertaining. If you gotta look at a kid and cuss them out, do that. That stuff is funny. People find that stuff funny. Now, there might be a parent, and my thing is like, okay, if that's the case where it's like, you know, a parent get mad about that stuff, then hire a parent to be like, hey, yo, we will pay you freaking $300-400 just to have it where your kid gets cussed out on TV. At the end of the day, like your kid got a career of some stuff, because if that stuff sells, if that stuff is like, because look at the one, the Angry Miz girl, when she had Miz had won the championship, and then they focused in on her and she was all upset. That girl got a career for life. She's always going to be known as that. She's gotten a following from that, and most likely can build more from that following. So getting kids involved in like, but get them involved in like some adultish like type stuff, you know, like not full on adult, but like get them into some stuff, get them into somewhere it's like, okay, like we can tell that wrestling is an environment for everybody. But as I see it now, like with WWE, and I'm like, Vince, that's why you're so mad, because look at what the company is right now compared to how it was back in the day. Like, and I'm not trying to like critique or say that it's bad. Like, wrestling is good. I watch it every Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. But on Wednesdays, I make sure I watch my AEW. But Mondays and Fridays, yes, exclusive all to WWE. Friday Night SmackDown, Monday Night Raw, exclusive to you guys. Now, what you guys got going on right now where wrestlers are appearing a little bit more darker, like Roman Reigns, for an example, and then the Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton situation, that type of stuff, like, I like that. That's good. That's something, if I were to see that, because me, I was one of those kids where I was like, I had like a very like I don't know, like a high tolerance for like, you know, the scary or dark stuff. Like it didn't really get to me, you know. Like I was like, all right. Like I was sitting there growing up watching movies like The Exorcist or freaking zombie movies or movies with like unlimited amount of cussing and things. Like I'm saying, how I grew up, I was like, hey yo, I seen a lot of crazy things. So wrestling on the other hand is like, you don't want to come off as violent, but what is wrestling? What is WWE? Like, if it was like one of those like wrestling matches, like, you know, like Olympic wrestling or something, you know, if it was something like that, then I'm like, okay, then that's why I'm like, it could possibly be kid friendly, you know. But even then, like fighting a opponent, whether it's wrestling or boxing or whatever, like that stuff is going to be violent. There's no way possible that wrestling cannot be violent. Because I'm like, that's what wrestling is. A wrestler getting punched in their head like numerous times. Or Sheamus when he's doing that one move where he's hitting them across the chest. Or somebody getting stumped out or beaten with a bunch of weapons. Like, I'm saying, you know, like, and my thing is that kids, like, when they see that stuff, like, at least me, on the other hand, I knew not to, like, really hit, because I'm like, we just doing what they do in wrestling. We do like the fake hits, we do like the fake stump outs and stuff. We ain't gonna really like stump somebody out unless that kid, like, no, you got some like legitimate anger towards that person. But I'm not gonna start up a random wrestling match with somebody that I don't know. No, it's gonna be a friend of mine, and I'm gonna make sure, like, that was like one of the things I remember talking about in the live stream, how me and my friend, we almost got in trouble for like doing a fake wrestling match, or we were doing like a WWE style wrestling match. I don't want to call it fake because I know that can offend a wrestler and stuff. So, but anyways, but yeah, I was all like, yo, I'm like, that type of stuff, like, we ain't gonna honestly be like hitting each other and, beating the crap out of each other. We just gonna be doing a fake version of it. So, yeah, I'm like, I just personally think, like, with wrestling, I'm like, you guys need to have it where it's like, just like I said, Saturday mornings or whenever, all that stuff, kids, but late at night, like where myself and a bunch of other people are going to be adults. So that means cussing, that means wrestlers getting beaten, Randy Orton hitting women with RKOs, because that's like one of the most, I had to say, I'm like, you guys can't be like PG and then you got Randy Orton out here RKOing women on the show and stuff. I'm like, no way possible. All right, so I guess now they're trying to I think they're trying to work their way up the ranks. Like, back then it was like rated E for everyone, and then now they're trying to make it where it's like a rated T for teen. No, y'all need to cut straight to rated AO, adults only. I'm saying, that's where WWE needs to be at and stuff, but not too adult. Don't have full on pornography on the WWE, but I'm just saying how it was back in the day, have it where it's like that now, because I'm guaranteed you're gonna have a lot of wrestling fans that was oh, were they doing how they used to? Oh, okay, so I like this, but just have it, because I know I think one thing that I heard is that they it's kind of messed up in the writing area of wrestling, how they would book a wrestler, how, because I'm saying there's a lot of wrestlers where I'm like, hey yo, you got something Braun Strowman, for an example. You guys got something good going on where you got them this bohemian beast that's just tearing up everything. Okay, continue with that, but just make it a tad bit more darker, make it a tad bit more interesting. This man walks up on Vince McMahon's car, punches out the window and snatches him out and just starts stumping him out and things, and he's just like, oh, I just felt like doing that. No real legitimate, and then he gets attacked by 100 wrestlers and ends up beating all of them within an inch of it. But not really doing it, but just for fun and stuff. But why they don't do that, I don't know. I'm saying, me personally, I knew if I had been a writer for WWE, I would have done it to the best that I possibly could, to where I'm like, yo, this stuff is going to be for the adults, but I'm going to try to introduce it into kids. Kids, this is what happens when you deal with a bully, and then it's just a wrestler just going off, okay? So I'm saying stuff like that makes sense, okay? Now that wrestling is pushed to the side, let's get into Marvel. Let's get into the movies. You have it where there's all of these supernatural superheroes and stuff. One got super strength, another one got an iron suit, the other one, got this freaking weird stuff in him that makes him green and his pants purple. And you mean to tell me that these guys ain't gonna be, so all these aliens will come down freaking from space, tear up the whole city and stuff, and you mean to tell me that no crazy stuff is gonna happen? Oh, everybody's cheering and all this. You mean to tell me ain't gonna be no random pedestrians getting zapped or lasered to death? They ain't gonna be no World of Worlds type stuff? No, the aliens is just only going for the Avengers. That's it. They ain't going for everybody else. You see that type of stuff where I'm like, hey, yo, if you guys gonna, I'm not saying that the Avengers was a bad movie, but I'm just saying, they could have, added some stuff in there where it was hey, yo, do that, okay? But anyways, and then, I know that they're, with Deadpool. Now, Deadpool, that was a movie that gave me hope. That was a movie where I'm like, hey, yo, they can go somewhere with this. They legit can go somewhere with this. But Deadpool had to have been one of the most raw and authentic movies I have ever seen in my life. And the fact that they came out with part 2, and part 2 was slightly like I did like one, don't get me wrong, but they're like neck and neck for me. But I would have to say that out of any day of the week, I think between those two, I would rather watch part two. So there's like been like limited times where I think I've seen a movie where it's like they came out with a part two and I'm like, hey yo, that was good. That was amazing. Or they might have came out with like a later sequel movie or something and I'm like, hey yo, that was a good one. Like the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, whichever one that they on, I'm like, hey yo, that was good. Okay? But the fact that they tried to shut that movie down because it didn't meet like the kids like criteria, I'm like, no. I'm like, that's where you gotta look up that Michael Jordan meme, boy, what he had to say about the kids. That's overall what I would have to say. Because I'm like, now you're catering these movies towards kids, and they don't even understand. They're not even paying attention to the words. They're just legit paying attention to the action. Like, that's when I'm paying attention. That's what I was paying attention to when I was a kid. I can care less about what they're saying. And then as you get older, you're like, oh, that's what that joke meant. That's what they... Oh, okay. Because a kid's not going to understand that stuff. You got kids out here seeing freaking... No, I think that was on Ridiculousness. I was about to say America's Funniest Videos. But, no, you got kids out there seeing two squirrels having sex out in the backyard. And the one kid was talking about, oh, he's giving them the Heimlich... Or he's giving the other squirrel the Heimlich maneuver. Like, and you really think a kid's gonna understand any jokes or anything that's being said in Deadpool or whatever else? No, they're not. They're gonna be paying attention to the action, okay? So, and if a kid understands that, then that kid's just smart, alright? So, my thing is like, same with, like, you know, the Avengers movies and Deadpool and all of that. Have a kid's version of it. And then have the adult version of it. Because I'm like, when you just have one, and then you expect... Now, with the Avengers movies, it did work out. Like, it did work out where you had both kids and adults watching the movies. And it was like, okay, that can work. That's good. That was really good. But it's going to come to a point in time where people... And there probably were some people out there that was like, hey, yo, this movie could have just been a little bit more for adults. But other than that, like, what they had going on in those movies, that was good. But imagine if they came out with a PG version of Deadpool. Even Ryan Reynolds would have been like, I don't know what this movie is. Like, I don't know how you can make a PG version of Deadpool. Don't understand that, alright? So, anyways, yeah, I personally think, like, yeah, you guys could have, you know, not touched that movie Deadpool. Because I think, what was it, the second one? Like, PG-13 or something like that? Or I don't know if it was, what was the rating for that one? Let me see real quick. Deadpool 2... rating. Oh, it was rated R. Huh. Oh, wow. Like, I don't know why I thought that movie was PG-13. It seemed like it was PG-13 compared to the first one. But anyways, it just... I think that they did tone it down a little bit when 2 was coming out because they was all like, oh, no, we don't want kids to be watching. I'm like, hey, yo, look, kids is gonna be watching that stuff, okay? Regardless if you want to try to avoid it. I'm like, it's a... That's what I'm like, and with, like, I kind of touched up on it a little bit with WWE, but whatever those kids look at or get into, that is on the parent. Now, if I were to come out with some movie or series or, you know, whatever, something, I am making that, like, if I want to make a kids version, I'm like, okay, this one for the kids, this one for the adults. But guess what? Guess what them kids gonna be watching? Excuse me, the adult version. It is up to the parents on what that kid watches or what they get into. So I'm like, they ain't got nothing to do with me. So, and then with the next one, what was the next one gonna be? Dang, I can't even think of what was the next one going to be. I should have wrote this stuff down. All right, well, you know what? I'm just going to improvise. So, video games. Plan B. Always make sure you have a plan B when recording a podcast. But next one, video games. I wanted to talk on video games because that's one thing that I have been hearing. Oh, YouTube. That's okay. So, video games and YouTube. So, but anyways, no, I'll talk on video games. But I don't understand why they're, like, trying to, like, you know, make it where, like, kids is not going to be playing, like, rated M video games. Like, that's all I played growing up. I played Grand Theft Auto. I played other rated M games. I felt like I played more rated M games back before under the age than I do like now that I'm over the age of 18. Like I feel like now I'm like, hey yo, like what are some of these games? Like I mean you know like the games that are like only rated M. I'm like, oh okay, so you know I did play that. I did enjoy that and stuff. But it seemed like back then I was all like, if that game ain't rated M, I'm not buying it. Now I'm like, I don't care. Like if the game is like E teen or M or whatever, I'm like, oh, I guess I'll play it and things. I mean, as long as the game is good. That's my thing is now. I'm like, I don't even care for like what the rating is. I care for the ratings. Like, I want to know if this is gonna be a 5-star, 5 out of 5, 100 out of 100, 100%. Like, I want to know if this game, there's like, hey yo, this is the best game ever. Like, it gets people that's not even into video games into playing that game. Like, that's when I'm focused on. So I care for the ratings, not the rating. But anyways, but yeah, like I know they're trying to make it where like Grand Theft Auto, they take that off the shelves because they're like they think it's too dangerous and things for kids. I'm like, hey yo, look, to just speak on that real quick, I played Grand Theft Auto pretty much my whole life. I played Grand Theft Auto all the way from back when I was like when San Andreas had came out. I remember before San Andreas came out, I played both 3 and Vice Cities. All right, so I played San Andreas. Years later, played the I know those PSP versions, Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories. Then I played 4. Now I'm playing 5. I played all those games underage, all of them. It's crazy to think I played even 5 too underage. Like I haven't played. There hasn't been a Grand Theft Auto game that I played like now that I'm over the age. Because 5 came out in 2013. I mean, I still do play 5, but I started playing those games when I was under the age. So my thing is just like, and that's the thing where I'm like, has those games made me violent? Has those games made me want to go out, steal a car, and run over like 10,000 people? No, it hasn't, and it never will. Now, to whoever plays those games, and then they get an idea, and then they want to go on a killing spree and shoot flare guns at people and get on rocket motorcycles and blow people up from the sky, that is on them. That ain't got nothing to do with everybody else that's playing the game, the developers. And like I said, with the past 2 things I was talking on, both movies and wrestling, it is up to the parents. Now, I remember when San Andreas came out, my dad, he did not want me to play that game because, yes, it was a little, it was rated M for mature. They did have some things in there that was like, would you let a kid play that? And here's the thing, yes, I played all of it. I played that. I had never beaten the game, but I made sure I did everything possible, okay? So there is things in that game that I know of, and I've known of that stuff ever since I was a kid. And you know what? I never thought of, oh, let me go steal a car. No. Steal about like 10, 15 cars. Go get some prostitutes, kill them after I'm finished with them, go on a freaking killing spree all across the city, jump off of a building, steal a plane, crash the plane, die, go on top of another building, steal a jetpack, or jump off and use a parachute. I have never ever thought that I would be, because that's one thing that my parents told me. See, this is what happens when you have parents that cares for you, parents that's actually paying attention to the stuff that you're into. They make sure that they tell you, hey, look, the stuff that you do in this game, like Grand Theft Auto, stealing cars and blowing them up, flipping them over, you can't do that in real life. And then think that you're going to be running down the street, punch an old lady in the face, and then steal her car and drive off in the sunset. It don't work like that. It's called prison, okay? And charges. That's what you're going to get when you go out and do that stuff, all right? So I had parents that cared about me, and they made sure I didn't do any of that crazy stuff. Now, to any other kid that does go, I'm like, something was already wrong with that kid. Like, I'm like, to any parent that's had a kid out there where it's like they played those games and they went crazy afterwards, that's on your kid. That ain't on me. I'm like, I was never affected by that stuff. So I'm like, I don't know if they, well, I mean, I think they did it, have like a kid-friendly version of Grand Theft Auto, of Grand Theft Auto, but it was Bully. But I think that game was like rated teen for teenagers and stuff. So kids, I don't know, kids want, if they could play it, they could, but I'm like, bruh, like, I don't think, my thing is like, if a kid like does like go out and repeat any of that stuff from games, I'm like I said, kid was crazy, okay? Now, let's talk on YouTube, okay? Let's save best for last, because I feel like YouTube is the main ones that's like really, affecting people by this. So for those that don't know, I've been a YouTuber for 11 years now. Like, I was like kind of going in and out of it like first 5 years, but in these past 6 years, been taking it serious as much as I could. Going at it, especially now in this past year with COVID and stuff. I've really been going at it, recording videos literally every single day. At some point in time, don't know when, but I do plan on going out and getting me a vlogging camera, and I'm just, upgrading everything that I possibly can to make sure that I am like one of the best, okay? But it's kind of hard to do that when YouTube is like, you have to be kid friendly. So the content that I want to post out, the content that I really want to do, can't do it. Why? Because YouTube wants me to be kid friendly. And then if I'm not, then they demonetize my videos, or they age restrict the videos, or they just take the video down, and I end up getting a strike, and I can't even be this content creator that I want to be. Now, on Twitch and other platforms, yes, you can. But on YouTube, there's like rules and regulations. And that's why you see like a lot of people, they don't really, there's been a lot of people that have left YouTube because they're like, yo, I can't handle this kid friendly stuff. This just doesn't make any sense to me. It's not cool. Where it's like, I gotta cater to some kids. And I'm like, once again, listen to me when I say this. I'm not trying to hear no arguments about it, okay? That is on the kids' parents on what they get into. They ain't got nothing to do with me. If a kid comes to my content or my video, and then they think, because I remember the one video that they took down, last video that YouTube took down off of my channel was this parkour reaction video. A reaction video. So I wasn't going out doing parkour myself. I was just reacting to a person that was doing parkour fails and stuff. But anyways, yeah, some people fell down. I guess they were hurt. I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, if you freaking try to, my thing is, like, that person should be smart enough to not try to attempt some backflip over some railings, and I'm like, then you get slammed into the ground. I'm like, yeah, that's on you, bruh. Like, that ain't got nothing to do with me. But YouTube took the video down, claiming that it was promoting dangerous and harmful acts, and they don't want kids to see that. I'm like, kids is already harmful and dangerous. Okay, so I'm like, trust me. I'm like, the schools that I went to, all kids was harmful and dangerous. Okay? All of them. There ain't not been one kid. I'm like, yeah, there might have been that one kid where they wasn't. But I'm like, every other kid that I've known and seen, I'm like, yes, they were harmful and dangerous. So that's why I'm like, what are you talking about? What kids are you seeing right now where they watch that content and they feel a certain way after it and stuff? If a kid, my thing is that, and I used to, like, I remember, like, growing up, I would watch, like, parkour, like, fails videos and stuff, because that stuff was on the rise at one point in time. So I was underage, watching that stuff, cracking up laughing. And I was smart. My thing is that if a kid's not smart enough to be like, oh, because my thing was like, oh, I know I can't do this. Oh, I know I can't go out there and do no backflip or try to jump over 20, 30 stairs and land on my feet or do a barrel roll. No, I'm not equipped for that. My body is not equipped for that type of stuff. I am sticks and bones, my guy. Like, no, I will hurt myself just thinking about parkour. I am hurting myself right now thinking about parkour. So, what do? I go on YouTube and react to people that's doing parkour that's like, hey, I got the body definition for it. That girl told me I look like Bruce Lee. That person told me I move like Bruce Lee and all this other stuff. So I can go out and do parkour. Bruce Lee, I'm like, that's two different things. Like, no, please don't. And then they take off running, jump off some stairs. Next thing you know, they slammed and knocked all the wind out their system, doing that crap. And I'm like, okay, that's on them. Where was their parent at? How come their parent... My thing is like, there'll be kids out there, their parent will tell them not to do something, and they still go out and do it anyways. That doesn't mean, like, I am put an influence in this kid to where they're gonna... No, that is built up in that kid's... If I have a kid, right? And I tell them not to do something, they go out and do it anyway, I'm like, okay, well, they just gonna have to learn the hard way. If I tell them, like, hey, don't do no parkour stuff, they go out and do it, and they come back in the house crying, talking about I hurt my elbow. I'm like, well, what did I say? You have to listen to me. I'm not telling you this stuff because I'm like, oh, just don't do it just because. Like, no, I'm telling you this stuff because I'm like, look, your dad done seen some parkour videos. That stuff ain't fun. So I'm like, you gonna hurt yourself in the process trying to do that. But, yeah, I'm like, and with YouTube Kids. Now, why? My thing is that they have like a kids website, but they just stop focusing on it, and they expect the main YouTube website to be kid friendly. not YouTube Kids. I'm like, nah, I'm not with that. I'm not with that at all. I'm like, no, you guys gonna have to change that. Go back to YouTube Kids, because I'm like, hey, yo, look. I'm like, I understand you trying to cater more to kids, but I'm like, look, I'm not a kid, so I'm not really. And the funny thing about it is that I did come out. I am working on a channel where I am doing, like, stuff that's like helping out kids, learning things and all of that. And like with either school or just everyday life, because I'm like, that stuff can be helpful and things. So anyways, but yeah, I'm like, I just my thing is just like, I really, at the end of the day, I like doing the content that I like making. So if it's kid friendly, it's kid friendly. If it's not, I'm like, why can't people not accept that? Like, why can't YouTube or any other platform not accept that? I'm like, bruh, like, y'all need to chill on this kid friendly stuff. Like, not everybody is kid friendly, whether they're gonna be on the internet or see a kid face to face. I'm like, if you got people that are willing to not be kid friendly to a kid's face, what makes you think people are gonna be kid friendly on the internet? If you got people out here that will legit punch a kid in the face, okay, like straight up attack a child, and then all of a sudden now we gotta be kid friendly because of their mistakes. No, I'm like, that is on that crazy person. I'm like, they ain't got nothing to do with me. All right. So, anyways, and that being said, kid friendly rant is over. I will talk to you guys later. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video or episode, however you're viewing this. Make sure you like and subscribe. It is very, very helpful. Stay tuned for some more episodes. Subscribe to all 31 of my YouTube channels. I got a crap ton of them. Follow me on Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok. Just search up TMossBoss and you'll find my accounts. Like my Facebook page too. I think you have to search up TMossBoss fan page for it to pop up. And yeah, I will talk to you guys later. Thank you guys for watching and or listening, and peace.